Welcome.
Android Netrunner is a two-player living card game set in a dystopian cyberpunk future where monolithic corporations control the vast majority of human interests. The corporation works to advance its agendas, while a subversive hacker known as a runner attempts to access and steal those agendas. To win the game, each player needs to score 7 points from advanced or stolen agendas. But from there, the corporation and runner's methods diverge. Corporations seek to score agendas by advancing them, which costs both clicks and credits. To buy the time and earn the credits they need, they must secure their servers with powerful security programs called ICE. ICE comes in different varieties, from simple barriers to aggressive sentries. Runners need to spend their clicks and credits to acquire the tools of the hacker trade, installing the necessary hardware and icebreaker programs to run past the corporation's security measures. Filled with calculated bluffs and high-stakes hacks, Android Netrunner allows you to change your reality one run at a time. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Android Netrunner. Before starting a game, the corporation player places his faction's corresponding identity card in his play area. The corporation's identity card represents his headquarters and also includes a unique special ability. The identity card also defines the minimum deck size and maximum influence he can use for out-of-faction cards when deck building. The corporation player's play area houses 3 central servers: unlimited remote servers, his click tracker, score area, and ICE. The corporation's central servers include the player's hand or headquarters, the draw deck known as R&D, and the discard pile known as the archives. Remote servers are created by installing agenda or asset cards. Agendas are the only cards in the game worth agenda points and have an advancement requirement that must be met before the corporation can score them. Assets can provide the corporation with resources that help advance and score agendas. Operation cards represent single occurrences. Each operation is trashed to the archives after being resolved. Finally, the corporation defends its servers against intrusions by installing ICE. Installed ICE is always dedicated to a particular server and is placed face down in front of that server horizontally. Each piece of ICE has a strength and a number of subroutines that a runner must circumvent before he can access servers. The corporation's installed cards have 2 play states: Resed, meaning that the card is face up and active, and unresed, meaning that the card is face down and inactive. Only by paying the res cost can the corporation res an installed card. While most corporation cards need to be resed before they can be utilized, agendas are never resed. Instead, they have an advancement cost. Only fully advanced agendas can be scored by the corporation. Just as the corporation player's faction is represented by his identity card, the runner's faction is indicated by one of 3 identity cards, each of which has its own special ability. There are 4 types of runner cards that are shuffled into the runner's deck, also known as his stack. These card types are hardware, resources, programs, and events. Hardware, resource, and program cards are not active until installed in the runner's rig by paying the install cost listed on the card. Unlike the corporation's cards, runner cards are always installed face up. Programs are digital tools at the runner's disposal, primarily used as a means of intrusion. Hardware cards represent the array of physical tools at the runner's disposal and may include state-of-the-art consoles, chips, or modifications. Resource cards represent a wide variety of connections, assets, and skills that aid the runner. Lastly, event cards represent singular occurrences. Each event takes effect immediately when it is played and is then trashed to the runner's heap after it is resolved. In Android Netrunner, the corporation and the runner each begin the game with a starting hand of 5 cards and 5 credits. Each player also has a click tracker that he uses to track the number of clicks he spends during his turn. The corporation can spend 3 clicks each turn, while the runner can spend 4. The game begins with the corporation taking the first turn, which consists of 3 phases: the draw phase, the action phase, and the discard phase. The corporation player is using a Wayland Consortium deck and has a starting hand consisting of 2 assets, 2 pieces of ice, and 1 operation. The corporation player begins the round, starting with the draw phase. He draws Archer from his R&D and adds it to his hand. The corporation player then begins the action phase of his turn and uses his first click to play Hedge Fund, an operation card. He pays the play cost of 5 credits and resolves the ability, which gains him 9 credits. After an operation card has been resolved, it is placed in the corporation archives. The corporation also gains 1 credit because of Wayland Consortium's identity ability. The corporation uses his second click to install the wall of static in front of his R&D, placing it horizontally to indicate that it is a piece of ice. All corporation cards are installed face down to show that they are currently unresed, thus inactive, until the corporation chooses to res the card. The corporation player spends his third and final click to install Pad Campaign as a new remote server. With all of his clicks spent, the corporation player proceeds to the discard phase. Since the corporation does not exceed his maximum hand size of 5, he discards nothing and ends his turn. The runner is playing as Gabriel Santiago, a criminal faction runner, and has a starting hand of 1 program, 1 piece of hardware, 2 events, and 1 resource. The runner's turn is divided into 2 phases, the action phase and the discard phase. The runner tracks 4 clicks during his turn. He begins his action phase by installing Desperado into his rig. This costs him 1 click and 3 credits, the install cost of the card. With his second click, the runner decides to make a run. When making a run, the runner chooses any of the corporation's servers to run against. In this case, the runner chooses to make a run against the corporation's R&D. When beginning a run, the runner approaches any ice protecting the chosen server, starting with the outermost piece. The runner must pass each piece of ice in order to approach the next piece protecting the server. If the corporation does not have enough credits or chooses not to res the encountered ice, the runner may pass to the next piece protecting the server until all pieces have been passed or until the run ends. In this example, the corporation decides to res the wall of static that is protecting his R&D, paying 3 credits to do so. The wall of static is a piece of ice with a barrier subtype. Since the runner does not have a program in place that will allow him to break a barrier subtype, he is forced to suffer the subroutine effects and must end the run on R&D. With his third click, the runner decides to make another run, this time on the corporation headquarters, which represents the corporation's hand of cards. Since there is no ice currently protecting the headquarters, the run is successful and the runner gains access. The runner also gains 1 credit from Desperado's ability and another 2 credits from Gabriel Santiago's ability. The runner draws 1 card from the corporation's hand of cards and reveals Hadrian's Wall. Some corporation cards have a trash cost. If the runner accesses a card with a trash cost, he may pay an equal amount of credits to trash it to the archives. Since Hadrian's Wall does not have a trash cost, the runner notes the existence of this piece of ice and then returns it to the corporation player's hand. The runner then uses his fourth and final click to play his special order event, which costs 1 credit to play and allows the runner to search his stack for any icebreaker and add it to his hand. The runner chooses and reveals Aurora, an icebreaker program that allows the runner to break ice with barrier subtypes, such as the corporation's newly rezzed Wall of Static. With all of his clicks spent, the runner then proceeds to the discard phase. Since the runner's hand does not exceed 5 cards, he does not have to discard. At the beginning of his turn, the corporation player decides to res his previously installed pad campaign. The corporation pays 2 credits, the res cost of the card, and then gains 1 credit from the pad campaign ability. The corporation player will gain 1 credit at the beginning of his turn as long as pad campaign remains in play. Next, the corporation player draws Hostile Takeover from R&D and spends his first click to install it as a new remote server. He then spends his second and third clicks plus 2 credits to advance Hostile Takeover in order to meet its advancement requirement. Once an agenda's advancement requirement has been met, it can be scored at any time. The credits used to advance the agenda are considered spent and are returned to the token bank. When scored, Hostile Takeover gives a bonus of 7 credits. However, Hostile Takeover also gives the corporation 1 bad publicity, which gives the runner 1 free credit at the beginning of each run. The runner may spend these credits during his run as if they were in his credit pool, but any unspent bad publicity credits return to the token bank at the end of the run. With all of his clicks spent, the corporation player then proceeds to the discard phase. Since his hand does not exceed 5 cards, he does not have to discard. The runner begins his action phase by spending his first click to make a run on the corporation's headquarters. Because of bad publicity, the runner gains 1 free credit for starting a run. Since there is no ice protecting the headquarters, the runner accesses the corporation's hand. Because the run was successful, the runner gains 1 credit for using Desperado and 2 more credits because of Gabriel Santiago's ID ability. The runner accesses a Melange Mining Corp asset, and using the free bad publicity credit, trashes Melange Mining Corp to the corporation company archives. The runner spends his second click and 1 credit, the install cost of the card, to install his Armitage code-busting resource. Once the resource is installed, 12 credits are placed on Armitage code-busting. The runner can now spend 1 click to gain 2 credits from this resource until all of its 12 credits are depleted. The runner spends his third click and 3 credits to install his Aurora Icebreaker. The runner spends his final click to make a run on R&D, and because of bad publicity, gains 1 additional credit to use during the run. The corporation's Wall of Static, which is protecting his R&D, has a strength of 3, while the runner's newly installed Aurora only has a strength of 1. An icebreaker cannot break any subroutines on a piece of ice with a higher strength. However, Aurora can be strengthened by spending credits. The runner pays 2 credits to increase Aurora's strength from 1 to 4. The runner then pays 2 credits to break the Wall of Static's End the Run subroutine and gains access to R&D. Because the run is successful, the runner gains 1 credit from Desperado's ability. The runner accesses the top card from R&D and reveals a Private Security Force agenda card. Whenever the runner accesses an agenda, it is stolen and immediately scored by the runner. The runner is then out of clicks, so his action phase is over. Since he is under the hand limit of 5 cards, the runner does not have to discard during the discard phase. At the beginning of his turn, the Corporation player collects 1 free credit from his installed and rezzed pad campaign asset, then begins his draw phase by drawing a priority requisition agenda from his R&D. The Corporation now begins his action phase and spends his first click to install priority requisition as a new remote server. This new agenda must be advanced before it can be scored, so the Corporation player chooses to protect it by installing ice, spending his second click to do so. He chooses to install Archer because it is a piece of ice with a sentry subtype, which the runner has no programs to break. The Corporation player then spends his final click to install Hadrian's Wall in front of his headquarters in order to stop the runner from gaining free credits using Gabriel Santiago's ability and to prevent the runner from accessing his hand in the future. The Corporation player has now spent all of his clicks and proceeds to the discard phase. Since he has 0 cards in his hand, the Corporation player has nothing to discard. The runner currently has 1 credit in his credit pool, so he begins his action phase by spending his first click to gain 2 credits from his Armitage code-busting resource. Next, he uses his second click to play Infiltration, which exposes any card the runner wishes to see. He chooses to expose the Corporation's newly installed remote server, the Priority Requisition agenda. The runner, seeing that priority requisition is a high-value agenda, decides that the rewards outweigh the risks of running on the server with an unrezzed piece of ice. Once the exposed card has been viewed by the runner, it is returned to the Corporation in its original face-down position. The runner decides to spend his third click to gain 2 more credits from his Armitage code-busting resource, hoping that priority requisition is protected by a piece of ice with the barrier subtype, which his Aurora program can break. He then spends his final click to make a run on the priority requisition server, gaining 1 free credit for bad publicity. The runner's gamble fails. The Corporation rezzes Archer, a sentry piece of ice, which costs 4 credits and requires the Corporation to forfeit an agenda. When the Corporation player forfeits an agenda, he chooses any agenda in his score area and removes it from the game. That agenda no longer gives him points. The Corporation player has only 1 agenda in his score area, the previously scored Hostile Takeover agenda, which he forfeits. Since Archer is a piece of ice with the sentry subtype, and since the runner does not have an icebreaker program that can break sentries, he is forced to suffer the effects of Archer's subroutines. The first subroutine gives 2 credits to the Corporation. The second subroutine allows the Corporation to trash the runner's Aurora program. The third subroutine has no effect because Aurora was the runner's only installed program, and the 4th subroutine ends the run. Also, since the runner was unable to use the free bad publicity credit, it is once again returned to the token bank. Play continues until 1 player scores 7 agenda points, or the game is decided by one of 2 other victory conditions. If the runner takes more damage than the number of cards in his hand, he is flatlined, and the Corporation wins the game. Alternatively, the Corporation loses if its R&D is ever fully depleted of cards. The network is omnipresent, the crux of modern human civilization. And while visionary corporations seek to secure their most valuable data on the network, the elite hackers known as netrunners seek to steal it. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Android Netrunner.